Once you stop learning is when you die.
Yeah, that's a death sentence right there.
I'm still learning how the gospel is being shared in a 21st century context rather than a 20th century context. We got to make sure that we are not preparing the next generation for our past, but preparing them for their future.
The perspective shift that happens when they can see things from other people's point of view, the more you can see another person's perspective, it doesn't make everything easier necessarily, but it creates more clarity on how to go operate what's next.
That's exactly right. Imagine working for an organization or being in a group where you have something to say, but you're not heard.
Yeah.
Or you don't feel valued. This is what creates the discontent in most companies. This is when everything shifted for me in a significant way.
Welcome to First and Focused, the podcast where faith meets leadership. I know you're going to put me on the spot. I don't know what you're going to ask me to say. I'm Mark Greaves, and in each episode, I sit down with business and industry leaders who put God first in their work and stay focused on building his kingdom through their calling. I could sit here and talk with you all day.
Keep up the great work, brother. The Lord is using you powerfully. I love you. I love watching what Jesus is doing in your life.
All right, welcome to First and Focused, where we meet with leaders from various industries who are using their influence to honor God first and also advance his kingdom through their various callings. Today, we are here with Dr. Pastor Jeffrey Broadnax. I don't know which one to call you or which
Jeff,
one's more.
You know that, right?
Yeah, just Jeff. Yeah, but yeah. I always call you Doc. That's my favorite nickname for you. I
appreciate it. It was hard work.
No, man. I love you, brother. I'm beyond happy that you're here. This is one of the ones that I've been looking forward to the most. So excited to have officially you on the show.
My pleasure, brother. So. Hey, look, you say this a lot, but you're one of my favorite people as well. You have just your story, my relationship with you over the last few years has shown me so much and given me such, not just hope, but it's taken my mindset out of kind of the boxes that I'm in even. So yeah. Some of the trust things that you've had to walk in and just good stuff. It's a reminder of what I need to be doing as well.
Well, thanks for being there because I've bent your ear many times for different things, and we've had a lot of cool discussions. Yeah. Well, let me hit you with an intro because for anybody that knows you, you're pretty humble, so you would never brag about yourself. So we'll give you a quick intro here. Dr. Jeffrey Broadnax, you are a seasoned pastor, leadership coach, and trusted voice in ministry with decades of experience developing leaders and strengthening the church. Based in Columbus, Ohio, you've served in pastoral leadership for over 30 years, guiding multiple congregations and mentoring both emerging and established leaders. You currently serve, as a leadership coach with Giant Worldwide, where you equip leaders to grow in clarity, health, and influence. Alongside your coaching work, you've held national and regional leadership roles within Grace Communion International, helping to develop pastors and ministry leaders across the country. You bring strong academic voice to your work, having completed doctoral research focused on the church's role in addressing racism, combining theology, leadership, and real-world application. At your core, you're a pastor and a builder of people, passionate about helping others discover their identity in Christ, lead with purpose, and faithfully live out their calling in today's world. You're also a husband, a father, a grandpa,
a
lover and follower of Jesus, and my friend. So
appreciate that, man.
So it's hard for me to even know really where to start the interview, but you're one of four guys, this is true actually, that have a letter that you've written to me hanging on my office wall. So there's people that have had a lot of influence on me, wisdom, that have been poured out. So you're one of those guys. So can you just, as we kick it off, having been in ministry all these years, your faith to me seems more alive than ever. You always have like this childlike faith to you. How have you kept that over the years?
Mark, it's funny. I'm one of those people that you can ask me how you do something and you don't know. And so all I can really say to you is that it is something that God has just given me. I really see myself sometimes too much like a even still a boy in a man's world. Like I'm 60 years old, but I'm the youngest of six in my family. And so just always being the youngest. And when I started out in ministry, I was one of the youngest in the crew of pastors that I was starting to engage with. So I was probably 10 years younger than many of the pastors that I was starting with. So when you're always the youngest in the room, now I'm one of the oldest in the room, but when you were one of the youngest in the room, you always kind of are in that space where you're always learning.
Yeah.
and being a lifelong learner, I think I am. I've gotten to the point where I really do believe that God is always going to be teaching me, and I'm always going to be his kid, right? I'm always his kid, and I try to help other people realize they're always his kid.
Yeah.
And so if I can not take myself too seriously, and sometimes not serious enough, but I don't take myself too seriously, and I'm always in a space where I believe God's teaching me something, and there's a lot. I realize how much I don't know.
Yeah.
I normally don't even say that because when I hear people say that, sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, that's the thing you say. But really, I'm learning all the time. And I really do believe that once you stop learning is when you die.
Yeah, that's a death sentence right there.
Yeah, and so spiritually, even as a pastor, I was in pastoral ministry for about 36 years before I moved on to some national and regional roles. But just in pastoral ministry, I see pastors doing things in the 21st century that I have no clue how to do. And I'm still learning how the gospel is being shared in a 21st century context rather than a 20th century context.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it should be that different. Having been born in the 20th century, it doesn't seem like it should be, but it is.
The delivery system is, right?
100%.
And there's parts of the delivery system that I still trust what works for me. But I remember I had a mentor who told me, I wish you could have met him. John Halford was his name. And John told me lots of things. He's the one, he taught me things like, Jeff, always try to look at things from more than one point of view. So he says, most people go through a front door. Every now and then you go take a look through the window because you'll see the same room, but you'll see it from a different perspective. And he told me years ago when we were working with college students and high school students, he said, Jeff, we got to make sure that we are not preparing the next generation for our past, but preparing them for their future.
Wow.
Huge. Because it's very easy.
There's four different angles there. There's their, past, future. It's not, that's crazy. Yeah.
Right. And that's true. Because if I put young people or people in a box that I've already walked, what's that saying about where God is going to be taking them?
Yeah. He's not taking them back there.
That's right.
That's true.
We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I think what we're supposed to take with us are the lessons, are the impactful encounters that we've had with God. We take those into this unknown future. But you can't relive the past. All you can do is take the lessons from it. But that was a game changer for me as a young leader.
Yeah.
And it's something that I continue to remember. So that forces me.
How old were you when you learned that?
Oh, when I heard it, I was in my 20s. When I understood it fully, I was in my 30s. But as I started using it and being aware of it and trying to make it a part of me, I was probably in my 40s and 50s. But it was just one of those things, man. You get it academically. To me, it's that difference between knowledge, understanding, and wisdom.
Yeah.
You can know something and it makes perfect sense. So yeah, that's cool. That's great knowledge. But then you understand the depth of it, right? But you can know it and understand it, never use it.
Yeah.
And so now the challenge in gaining wisdom is learning how to use the things that God has taught you to help you know and understand. So I would say it's just been in the last 20 years or so that it's become a natural part of my interactions with people.
Well, you just inadvertently answered, in my mind anyway, part of how you keep this childlike faith. Okay. Because you're going through the layers of depth of relationship with God, because you're hearing it, then you're understanding it, then you're peeling it back, you're implementing it, by trial and error, you're seeing how it works, and then you're using it better and better and better throughout the course of your life. So I feel like staying in touch with God in those ways, he's going to continually show you new things on your path and through your story, because the same thing that you heard about in your 20s is now playing out in your life very differently in your 60s. There has to just be moment after moment where you're like, oh yeah, God. Oh yeah, God. Oh, that's all. I see how that's working now.
It is. That is so much of my daily life, right?
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time. It's like I still read the scriptures, and I'm like, has that always been there? Really? Has that always been there?
Yeah.
because it is a moment where God shows you something and you can read it the same way, but today you hear it differently.
Yeah.
Or today now attached to other things that you've learned or other things that he's taught me, I ask different questions, right? And I just feel like that has been a part of my learning. I mean, years ago, I'd say this is probably 20, 25 years ago. This is probably when the shift happened. Been studying Samuel and kind of going through that whole Samuel thing. When Samuel was a kid and, he heard the voice of God and he didn't know it was the voice of God. And so Eli basically told him, look, next time you hear the voice, just say, here I am, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. For years, when I went to conferences or meetings, I'd take a notebook and I basically wrote down everything because I'm that guy. I want to be able to go back and look at it later.
Yeah.
But I realized I didn't look at half of it, right? Most of it I didn't look at. And so what I started doing about 20 years ago, is I started writing whenever I would go to a conference or a gathering, I'd write the letters, speak now, your servant is listening. Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. SLYISL, right? And then my prayer was, God, the stuff you want me to write down, let me write it down. So that I'm not just taking random notes.
Yeah.
But I'm still trying to learn, trying to figure out what is it about this gathering? Everything's important, but some things are vital for me.
Yeah.
And that's my problem is I still take in too much stuff, and I'm still trying to learn how to weed out what God wants from me and what's just good information.
Yeah, that's good. Well, hard to learn, probably hard to decipher.
Yeah.
But good that you're still attempting it. And even at 60, you're still trying to learn, which is crazy. Yeah. So you already kind of mentioned this. You were the youngest of 6 kids. Mm-hmm. So as my next question, because I'm done it, what were you like growing up? Because you're in these leadership roles now, but being the youngest, like you don't necessarily think of like the youngest being a leader. A lot of times it doesn't happen. So what were you like?
Obnoxious. I was just... how I felt about me, here's the thing, Mark. How I felt about me and how others told me later they saw me were two different things. Yeah. So when I was growing up, you got older brothers. I got 3 older brothers and 2 older sisters.
Yeah.
I have a brother we're a year and a day apart. And, so my brother, he was more athletic. He was better looking. He
that's hard to do. That might be a lot there.
He was more courageous, right? I was a chicken, right? And so I always saw myself as just the nice kid. I was a rule follower. I hated getting in trouble. I hated getting yelled at. So I was a rule follower. And so I learned to do things, right? And so I didn't see myself as a leader very often. And because of my family, my dad and my mom, while they taught us to work hard, really work hard, we weren't really, it wasn't really encouraged for us to enjoy successes, right? Because we didn't want to get the big head, right?
Yeah.
It was that whole thing. You want to be humble. You don't want to get the big head. And so and frankly, I really never learned how to enjoy successes because it was always, once you succeed, it's time to move on to the next thing. And so I never saw things as really as valuable as they really are. And so everything was, once you accomplish something, you just kind of move on. So I was a springboard diver and I was a top diver in the city in the rec leagues, right? And that kind of thing. And I ran track. I was really good, but I was never really able to fully appreciate them. So I never saw myself as like the real leaders. I was a leader, but I wasn't like the real leaders.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And so I always saw myself in that space. There were always those people who had the positions and power and responsibilities and the trust. And then there were those of us who could get things done and people relied on us, but they didn't exactly treat us like we were the leaders.
There was no formal. Yeah.
And so you learn to lead from within. And that's probably what you see now, right?
Yeah.
It is, I guess that's the way to do it. When I was a kid, I learned to work hard. I learned to value people. I spent a lot of time. My parents we spent a lot of time around older people. And so my upbringing is really 2 generations above me, right? We spent time sitting with older people. I mean, my dad's 85 years old, and he still every weekend goes and visits people in nursing homes.
He's going in there.
He's going to nursing homes.
Yeah. He's probably ministering to people younger than him.
Yeah. So yeah, he is. And so he would take us when we were kids, and we would sit and we'd hear these old people's stories.
Oh yeah.
And so I lived my life kind of in an old person world.
Yeah.
And then we'd go play with my friends, but we spent time in that old people world. So I kind of learned to kind of navigate with older people.
That's good though.
So yeah, so that how I saw myself was, obviously you get a little full of yourself when you're the senior or when you're the top dog. But for the most part, until I got into college, I didn't really see myself as a leader. And after college, it started happening. But,
well, how did that change? Because obviously you went into ministry, you've had leadership in ministry, and then one of the next places I want to go is like you're Giant Leadership Certified, like you're a leader within that network. Like, how does that work?
Okay.
What's the transition look like for you?
I'll tell you, the transition was people pouring into me. That mentor I told you about.
Yeah.
I had people who were good to me, but there were, when I was probably in I was 2021. This is when everything shifted for me in a significant way. We had a camp ministry. Our denomination had a camp ministry, and so we had a big camp. We bring 1,000 young people a summer to this camp in Minnesota, and the director and some other leaders there just poured into me. But when I was a senior in college or junior in college, this mentored man became my mentor. Actually, his daughter, Judy Hoban, from over at Childlike schools.
Yeah,
Judy's dad was my mentor.
That's a small world. That's
Judy's
cool.
dad married my wife and I in California. Yeah. So,
wow.
We go back a long way. So
yeah.
That's a whole nother story in itself. But he invited me when I was in college to be his faculty aide. And he was one of the first people to believe in me.
Yeah.
And then we would go up to the camp, and the camp director and the person who ran the basketball and volleyball program, which I worked under him. He was one of the best coaches and one of the best leaders I've ever known. One of the best teachers I've ever known. They believed in me. Dave Goethals and Kermit Nelson. They believed in me. And there have been others like Jeb Egbert and some others. They believed in me, but these guys gave me opportunity and they trusted me.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I felt trusted, right? They would release me. And that changed everything.
Yeah, there's a difference there.
And that allowed me to actually believe I'm not just kind of in a role, but I'm trusted to lead that role.
Yeah.
It was little things.
That's where you start taking ownership of it.
That's where we start taking ownership. And so that became a part of the way I try to lead. That, like, we ran a gym, right? So we were teaching basketball and volleyball all day, every day for 3 weeks. And I would run the gym. We had a staff of about 15. And so the way I was taught, they trained me, those guys would let us run the entire program for the day. So when I began leading the program a couple of years later, I led it for about 5 years. That's what I would do. Every one of my staff, you have the hour. I'm on line with you. I'm a teacher. You're the head. And so empowering them to lead, it was a structured program. It was beautiful. And, so by pouring into me and giving me that opportunity to lead, I began to see myself as a leader.
Yeah.
Changed everything.
So it's not much different than that in corporate environments or in ministry environments. Right. A lot of it's about trust, responsibility, ownership. I mean, obviously the competence and the character and all those things have to be there in the individual in order for that to be fully given. But it's not much different. What do you do with Giant? How did that all come about?
It's funny, our denomination, I mean, my role, it's adjunct with Giant, but my role is I'm the U.S. Director of Ministry for Grace Community International. That's our denomination. So our denomination, we had gone through a presidential change back in the late 2016, 2017. And so as a part of our leadership change, our new president he's a leader. He's a visionary leader. And so he had come into one of our other leaders had come into contact with a guy from Giant who was talking about transformational change within leadership structures. And so Greg, our president, Greg did a little bit of training with like 5 guys that who were the key leaders at the time. And they got involved with Giant. So in the next wave, they got me involved as one of the other regional leaders. And it was Giant. Giant actually is it's a business leadership development group that works with shifting cultures, transforming cultures.
Yeah.
But it began with the church. Every one of the Giant tools came out of the church.
Yeah.
Jeremy Kubicek and Steve Cockram, those 2 guys, they're believers, and they offered this stuff to the church, and the church really wasn't ready. And so they took it to the corporate world. Even though it's still in the church, they brought it to the corporate world. But so our denomination went through the Giant material, and it was transformational for us.
Yeah.
Our leadership culture shifted dramatically. Wasn't that it was bad right before Greg, but it needed a shift, and it shifted dramatically. And so I ended up going through additional training and becoming a certified guide.
Yeah.
And becoming a trained leader to train others. And so it's been a game changer for me. I truly wish I knew the things I've learned in Giant 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I really do wish that.
So Johanna Hill has told me about a training that you've done at Tree of Life. What is that training about?
Okay. The central training of Giant is called the 5 voices.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you take us through that real quick?
Sure.
Because
quickly.
He talked about that training. He's like, man, you got to get Jeff to do that at some point. I was like,
I'd love to.
Go for it.
All right. So most leaders have taken Myers-Briggs, and you've taken all the inventories. You take, whether you're an ox or an otter or an eagle, red, blue.
Oh yeah. Yellow, disc testing.
And all of those things, what ends up happening, and when I was doing my counseling degree, that we had to learn all of those equippings and kind of structures to try to figure out how to help people learn their leadership. But what happens often with those is that people get typecast. You become a 4-letter code.
Yeah.
You become a color. You become this or that. And that's not how we're wired. And you don't stay in the same leadership approach throughout your entire leadership life. So what those guys did, they started out of Myers-Briggs. Steve Cockram, I think, was a leader in Myers-Briggs and helping with that process. But what they decided to do was they realized that there was something missing. And the spiritual component of it was missing. Part of that is, how are we wired? Not just how do we lead, how are we wired? Most people, they say our leadership style comes from 3 places: nature, how you're wired; nurture, how you've been brought up; or choice, the things you've decided to do. Mm-hmm. Most people stay in leadership based upon either choices that they've made because they're in an industry and they've risen in this industry. It doesn't feed their soul, but they're in this industry.
Yeah.
Right? Or they operate out of how they've been nurtured, or maybe they've had good leadership or bad leadership, and so they default to how they've been brought up. But what would happen if people would figure out how God has wired them, how He's wired you, and then you can lead out of that, right? And so they found that there are 5. They call them voices. They're called voices, not. And if you can attach them to the 5-fold ministry, but I'll do that another time. There are 5 voices that we all have access to all 5. It's just some are more easy to access. Okay, so there's the pioneer voice. The pioneer voice is the strategic voice. It's the leadership. It's the one that's not afraid of any challenge, right? And it can move, it can strategize, and it can lead people with a passion.
Yeah.
Powerful. Most of your CEOs are pioneers.
Yeah.
Most of your leaders like that are pioneers. They're drivers, right? Now, there's positives and negatives of each one. But the pioneer voice is that strategic voice. Some people are just wired that way. Other people are not. Another voice is your creative voice. So imagine people who are like drones. They can get up and they can get 1,000 feet up and they can see the future so well. They can't always explain what they see, but they see it, and they see the good that's ahead and they see some of the negative things that are ahead. And they have such a clear picture of it. They wouldn't be able to get you, how to get there, but they see those things and you need those people, right? Very few people that are like that, right? You have the connectors. Some people are just born connectors. They are the people of relational connection. They relational partnerships, right? They're just gifted in that. No matter what you need, they either know how to do it or they know somebody who does.
Yeah.
And they can bridge you and they can help they're effective communicators, and they can help people connect with the strategic vision, but also for the people who say, okay, well, how's that strategic vision going to hurt people or help people? These people are the bridges who can help those people come together.
Yeah.
Then you've got the nurturers, the nurturer voice. The nurturer voice is a voice that is always about relational harmony. These people will do anything, no matter what you're doing, they're always concerned about the family, the connection, how does this apply to other people? What is this going to mean for the lives of people? And they don't like disharmony, right? They will keep you bonded. They will be a glue, right? They're like a relational glue. And then the last group, the last voice, is the guardian. There are those people whose gift, they're wired for systems and processes. They're wired to make sure that they work. And they don't just work, they're repeatable, right? Because you can have a great idea, but somebody needs to be able to pick that thing apart and say, will this be repeatable, right? Not just wow, but how.
How do I put some order into this thing? Yeah.
And they're gifted that way. And so what the five voices really gets to is that in every group, you've got people who fit into those five categories, right? About 30%, about 43% of all groups, and this was done research-wise, right, for them, business research, about 43% of the population are nurturers.
That's a high percentage.
Almost half. 30% of the general population in any group are guardians. So think about this.
3 out of 4 just want to keep the peace and make it work right. That's pretty much what you're saying. Uh-huh. Wow.
And then you have about 9% that are creatives. Okay. So you got 82% of people, 82% of the people, generally, those people are the ones who don't get heard very easy because the pioneers and the connectors are the ones with the strongest voices.
100%.
So imagine working for an organization or being in a group where you have something to say, but you're not heard. Or you don't feel valued. This is what creates the discontent in most companies.
Yeah.
Is that this group of people, huge group of people, don't feel heard or valued. So then you've got 11% of the population are connectors, right? 11% are connectors and 9% are pioneers. So when you think about that, but the pioneers and the connectors are the ones who can share their vision really clearly. They can captivate a room.
Yeah.
But they also suck the air out of the room.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. And that's not so different in the church. Like you're
correct.
You're right. Yeah.
The vast majority of most churches are your leaders, are your guardians and nurturers.
Yeah.
So what Giant is striving to do is, if you started, I'm sure you've done this too in the corporate world. For your first day on the job, you learn how to align. You get your book, you understand what the values are, the mission, the vision, the values, you learn your job description, and your job is to align with who the company is. And then it's to execute your job.
Yeah.
Right? And then build capacity. What Giant did was realize that, okay, that works, but that creates the problems that are always there. And if you get in your mind like a bike pedal, if you start with the pedal down here, you got to do some work just to get it moving.
Yeah.
So what they said was, what if we started with these two aspects of communication and relationship? What if you could learn as a strategic leader how to communicate clearly to the nurturer? Because they're opposite voices.
Yeah.
If you could learn to communicate with them and build a relationship with them, now you got the momentum for the alignment, execution, and capacity.
Yeah.
Right. And so what the whole Giant framework of the five voices is, if you could help your organization understand what your organizational structure is, what the leaders are like. Then you learn to communicate with them and learn them to communicate with you. Because many pioneers don't understand what it's like on the other side of them.
Yeah, they don't.
And you've seen it both ways, right?
Yeah.
And so, because each one has a strength, but each one also has, there's a downside to that voice.
100%.
And so what if you as a leader could understand the strength and the downside to your voice? What if the guardians could learn that and the nurturers could learn that? Now your communication changes. Now when you align, you're communing.
The connection of people to each other and the perspective shift that happens when they can see things from other people's point of view. Because one of my favorite quotes is, we don't see things the way they are, we see things the way we are.
That's right.
And it's just the truth.
Yeah.
The more you can see another person's perspective within an organization, and it doesn't make everything easier necessarily, but it creates more clarity on how to go operate what's next.
That's exactly right.
And that's what a lot of people are looking for, is clarity.
Yeah. And so with Giant, one of the key phrases is, Giant is trying to help leaders know themselves to lead themselves.
Yeah.
Because once you know yourself to lead yourself, now you can lead your team.
Yeah.
And it's all for Giant, it's really the desire to liberate leaders, to give them high support, to give them high challenge.
Yeah.
To liberate them to be who they've been made to be. Because what happens when everybody can operate in their giftings?
That's where the real magic's at.
That's where the magic is.
Yeah, because then all of a sudden those strengths are coming out, and people you're fully giving of yourself the best things that you have to give. And that's where the ultimate satisfaction and things come from too. So your whole team is probably more fulfilled as a result.
And so that's what we've been trying to do as a denomination with our pastors.
Yeah.
And their teams.
That's really good.
Help people see who God has made them to be.
Yeah.
And then live in that. And then how do we come together with that?
It's cool to hear the perspective of, how you're laying it out, because you're in leadership within your denomination, but you guys are tackling more than just kind of the nuts and bolts of having church and going through and doing the Sunday stuff. No. You're really thinking like, how do we go be the best we can for our flock so that we can lead more people to Jesus, so that we can incorporate their gifts and their strengths so they can become great disciples and go lead more people to Jesus. Like it exponentially fans out.
And it's exactly
really cool.
what Jesus did. Look at the 12. Look how different they were.
Yeah.
And look at how he used each one of them to be who they were meant to be.
Yeah.
I mean, in The Chosen, it shows it a lot, right?
Yeah.
So when you watch how Jesus didn't ask Matthew to do the things that he was going to ask Peter to do.
That's true. Yeah.
Or Z to do, right?
Yep.
He let Matthew be Matthew's a guardian in that space, right? He's the one that's jotting down everything.
Specifics. Yeah.
Peter couldn't have done that to save his life.
Right.
Right? That's not who he's wired to be.
It's true.
So what would happen if we were to come to grips with how Jesus has made us, the gifts he's poured us? Romans 12 talks about how we're one body, but we're differing gifts.
Yeah.
So if this is your gift, use it. And if this is your gift, use it. Be fitly framed together while every part does its work. That's the mindset.
No one part greater than the other.
No one part greater than the other.
Just unique.
Yep. And even the ones behind the scenes. Even those, look, let your kidneys not work and you got a problem.
Yeah.
That's what we're striving to do. That's what Giant is really trying to do in the church, but also in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Because there are people who are silent in every meeting.
All right. You ready to shift gears?
Shift.
All right. I'm shifting. So I've known this part of your story, and I think it's such a beautiful part of your story. We've had many conversations about it, and the way that you approach this, just the words that come out of your mouth are so full of love, and just the ways that you've explained kind of some of the doctoral thesis work and things that you did, they just always intrigued and inspired me. So your great-grandpa was born technically maybe not into slavery. You said he was born in 1864.
1864.
I've always thought in my head he was born into slavery.
Yeah.
That's not that many generations removed. That's 3 generations ago.
Yeah.
So you have a great-grandpa born into that environment in Mississippi. 3 generations later, you're getting your doctorate. I know you were able to visit his gravesite after you achieved that, which is a really cool moment.
Yeah.
Awesome milestone. So first off, what did that feel like to you? But then also, how have you guys operated through this, knowing that slavery is in your family tree? Yeah. But that never really defined you guys. Your relationship with Christ did. And I'm just kind of curious to hear your thoughts on that, how that worked.
I have to say, I truly recognize how blessed I am. Right, my family, my dad's side, I came from loving family. Both sides of my family, my mom's side and my dad's side, incredibly loving families, right, and connected families, but loving families. But my dad's side of the family were religious and spiritual, Christian. My mom's side of the family were not necessarily Christian.
Yeah.
So the journey that I'm on, I'm sure there were parts of it that my mom's side would help with, but the spiritual face of my worldview came from there. And it was such an amazing thing as I think about it now. My grandmother, my dad's mom, her brothers were pastors. Her father was a pastor. And they were pastors in the church that I grew up in before moving on to the church I'm in now. So when I was growing up, my dad there's 6 of them, and all of us, my grandparents and all the kids, we all went to the same church. We were there every Sunday. All of us were at church together in one church. And that was the mindset was we were a believing family. My grandparents were believers. And so my great-grandfather was a believer. I mean, he what I know of him, what he gave my grandfather and his brothers and sisters was a trust in God, right? And I just have to say that has shaped how I see everything in the world. I could tell you with 100% certainty, I never once in my life saw my grandparents, my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, on my dad's side. I never saw them say one mean or nasty thing to anyone. I never saw them do anything that wasn't honorable in my mind. This is, again, I'm a kid.
Yeah.
My grandmother lived to be 97 and my grandfather lived to be 87. I never saw that. What I saw was believing, Christian, Christ-loving people. And I would go to church with my grandparents sometimes when my parents didn't go when I was a kid. And that just shaped my understanding. So to have my great-grandfather be born in 1864 in Mississippi, which he was probably conceived during the year of emancipation. So, yeah. And in Mississippi, as we know, Juneteenth didn't happen in Texas until 1865, and Mississippi's right next to there. So that whole part of the world was still in Reconstruction, Jim Crow South. My grandparents were born in Mississippi, and my grandmother was born in Alabama.
Not a real easy time.
Not an easy time. Yeah. But what gave them the ability to not be overwhelmed by all of that was their reality that there was a God.
Yeah.
Who loved them. So no, my grandparents never owned a home. They lived in apartments. They raised 6 kids in a 3-bedroom apartment. And they never had lots. But we never wanted for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that translated to my parents. And that translated to me. I've never wanted for anything.
Yeah.
Because I know there is a God. No matter what difficulty comes. Now, doesn't mean we haven't had drama in our lives. And they've gone through some major stuff.
Yeah.
But it was always because they knew that God is real, that Jesus is real.
Mm-hmm. And
he would see them through. So that shaped my understanding of how I saw race, how I saw racism. We grew up in an integrated world, right? I grew up in an integrated world. I was born in 1965, but we grew up in an integrated world. Some of my best friends growing up were white, and from 4 years old on, my best friend was a white kid, and we went all the way through school together from kindergarten on. And then, I've had white friends, and so that's been my world. So I never, even though racism would touch us,
yeah,
it didn't shape me, right? I was never burdened and weighted down. And I have to believe that was because my great-grandfather, when he was going through, having to farm and being taken advantage of, and being treated like he was in Mississippi, I can only attribute it to the fact that he knew there was a God.
Yeah.
And he did not want his grandchildren or his children to live in that. And so when I finished, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, he did go to school. I had thought for a while that he couldn't read, but he did go to school. I had misread the census data, but he had a very short education, but he ended up owning 100 acres of land in Mississippi. And yet, what was his dream? Because he never was able to really leave there. What was his dream? What would his dream been for his son or for his grandson? Again, my dad was 3 years old when he died. And so when I finished my degree, my doctorate, I took my robe, I took my hood, I went down to he and my great-grandmother's grave in Mississippi, this run-down little cemetery, and I laid it out. And I just thanked God for him and her and all the generations that came before them, because we don't know anything about his dad.
Yeah.
I thank God that I was able to be an answer to his prayer. Because I can guarantee you he prayed that his children would have my life.
Yeah. Look at what the loving power of God too, because the perspective that you have and that your family's had the entire way through, Jesus' love overpowers any other thing that could possibly have entered through your guys' minds, or the way that you approached your life, just the loving power of God in and through your entire family tree. What a special legacy that he left that now is being played out in your life daily.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I wish my kids could experience that same thing. I mean, that has kind of gone away from and generationally.
Yep.
But my reality is, I know that I am an answer to prayers.
Yeah.
I remember my grandmother told me, because again, her dad was a pastor and her brothers were pastors. She wanted one of her kids to be pastor, and it didn't happen. And then I remember she was in her 90s. I'm visiting with her, pastor, and she told me how proud she was of me, and that she said, "I prayed for you." I'm a firm believer that I'm in pastoral ministry because Rebecca Olds Broadnax prayed for her grandbaby.
Yeah, probably.
And I'm in.
All right, so I know your doctoral work that you did was on how basically the church should lead on this topic of racism.
Yeah,
because who better to be able to speak into this than those that have the loving power of Jesus and the Holy Spirit? Can you just take us through some of your work and then your findings on this? Because as you've explained it to me, it just makes so much sense. So maybe some of the positives and like why this should happen, and maybe some of the reasons why it isn't. I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has frustrated me in my lifetime, again, I grew up I was born in 1965, so the civil rights movement was going on, I was in between Kennedy's death and King's death. And as I listen today, I'm so frustrated with the way race is portrayed, or the way the role racial division has in our country.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that there isn't racism. That I believe there is racism. I believe there is wretched racism, but I believe it's also powerless. But that's my view, and I'll tell you why. And so what I began to look at after George Floyd. I think what sparked me doing the doctoral program the way I was doing it was that shooting in South Carolina at Mother Emanuel Church, where that young man went into that church while those folks were praying, and he shot them. That did something to me, because the responses of those people in that moment was the response that my grandparents would have had. They'd have prayed for that young boy while he was doing the very thing he was doing. And because they knew, they know, okay, God is God. But when I watched the movie afterwards called Emmanuel, you saw the whole range of the families and how they approached it. Some were able to forgive, some were not, and they were believers. Some were not. Some were just struggled with how bad it was. And that was a catalyst for me, and I couldn't shake that. And then George Floyd happened, and Breonna Taylor, and all the other things that had built up. And what I saw was that things were getting racially worse. And so I asked the question, if Christianity has the answer to all racial division, and I believe we do.
Yeah.
His name is Jesus. Then why don't we see that racial unity in the life of the church? Because if we have the answer, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, why don't we see it in the life of the church? And then I had a second question. Second question was, if Christianity has the answer to racial division and all division, all things that separate, then why isn't the church the leading voice in bringing it about?
Those are great questions.
And the answer hurt me, but what I believe the answer is that we've never embraced the true answer. We've attached him to the answer, to our own answers. We've used civil rights, we've used protests, we've used all these other things, we've used these reconciliation weekends, we've used all that stuff to try to solve the problem when the problem's already been solved. We attach Jesus to our activities as opposed to starting with Jesus as the cornerstone.
Yeah.
Because if he's the cornerstone, then it says he has broken down all walls of hostility. And he has reconciled all things to himself, all things to the Father. He's reconciled everything. So there is nothing that is not reconciled in his life, death, and resurrection. So what would happen if we would start with Jesus as the first stone in, and then as the capstone, which is what Scripture talks about him as? How would that change our approach? And what I found, I just studied the life of the church. In particular, I studied the life of the Black church, but I looked at the church as a whole. And the church as a whole, we talk about the impact of Jesus, but we don't start with him. So that even today, in 2026, over 90% of the Christian churches in America are homogenous. That means there is one predominant race in the church.
Yeah.
The 11 o'clock on Sunday morning is still the most segregated hour of the week.
That's an interesting thing to hear, but I think it's true. Like, as it's hitting me, I'm like, yeah, it's true for the most part.
Yeah. And so the question becomes, what would happen if we set aside the political right and the political left? If we set aside the things such as liberation theology or Black Power movement, or even getting on this side where we talk about color blindness, where we don't see color. You have to see color.
Yeah.
Right?
It's obvious. God made us that way.
What if we moved away from the extremes and all started pointing toward Jesus? You can be progressive, you can be left and work toward Jesus, because then you'll be coming closer to the other. And you can be conservative, but if we're working toward Jesus, then we're starting with Jesus and looking at you as brother, sister, or neighbor, right? That's what we haven't done. And so my work was building a case for what I called Christ privilege. Not white privilege, not Black privilege, Christ privilege.
Yeah.
Because if we start with our identity, which is as beloved children of God, it changes how I see everybody. This is, one of my favorite passages, and it's a life passage for me, is 2 Corinthians 5, where Paul says, if anyone's in Christ, he's a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. And it talks about how we can no longer see, because we are compelled by the love of Christ. Again, cornerstone is the love of Christ. Because we are compelled by the love of Christ, we can no longer see anyone from a worldly point of view, even though we once saw Christ that way. And it goes down and talk about how we are ambassadors for Christ, and that we have been given a ministry of reconciliation, and we've been given the message of reconciliation.
Yeah.
To tell everyone to be reconciled. Reconciliation has happened. Be reconciled.
Yeah.
Stop seeing each other from worldly point of views. And we can see it, but again, we can understand it. But what's it look like in real time? And if the church was sharing that message without the political stuff on either side, if we were sharing that message of being brothers and sisters in Christ, he says, even if your brother or your sister or your neighbor comes at you as an enemy, the response was 100% the same. Love them.
Yeah.
Love them like I love them. Now that made me have to tell a hard truth.
Wasn't that the new command that he gave us?
New command.
I think it's the only one he said, I give you a new commandment.
Love them like I love them.
Yeah. It's number 11, I guess. I don't know.
he said all the other stuff hangs on it. And so, my work, the doctoral work, and I'm actually writing a book right now on that process of not just seeing it that way, but living that way. I'm using the story of Joshua, and the title of the book is called "We Are Well Able," because it's that same mindset. There are giants in the land. There was walled cities, but God had promised that land was going to belong to them. He settled it. If they went in with the mindset that it's settled, it was settled. If they went in scared of the giants, if they went in scared of the walls or scared of all the things that were happening or letting all those things get in the way, they'd never be able to live free in the promised land.
Yeah.
That to me is a mindset that racism and racial division and all these other divisions, that's what it's done. They're giants. Well, God didn't say, if there's giants there, you can't go in. He said, go see what's in there. But these are all the things I've already delivered to you.
Yeah.
So how do we as believers start focusing and start teaching on and start speaking into the racial divides, which is a spiritual problem? How do we address it as a spiritual problem and not as an interpersonal problem? It's lived out interpersonally, but it is a spiritual problem.
Yeah.
That's the worldview of the work that I did there. That's what I'm working on right now. But because to me, it's not just simple, it's profound. And it is definitely something that will take humility and it will take courage, because we don't want to do it that way.
True. I think that's the follow-up question of this is that how do you convince the church to adopt this and move forward as the church is called to do versus the way that it's already going about?
I'm so glad you used that language. How do you convince the church? I'm firm that this is something that Holy Spirit has shown me about this issue. That in Latin, there are two in English are two words, convince and convict. They both mean the same thing. Convince means to conquer with, right? Con with, vince means to conquer. But you can convict. Victory means to conquer with. They both mean the same thing, except they take on different issues. When you convince someone, you're convincing them here.
Yeah, you're basically persuading me that it's a good idea.
That's right.
In my head.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm pushing you through, right? When you are convicted, you're convicted here.
Yeah.
I believe that what God has called me to be a part of is helping the church experience the conviction of the Holy Spirit that this is the way to go. The convincing will come after the conviction.
They got to feel it in their heart first.
Has to, because out of the heart are the issues of life.
Yeah.
How the mouth will speak. So my prayer is that the information, and this is one of the challenges that I have, because we live in such an information-based world, right?
Yeah.
A convincing world. I have to convince you that why wouldn't this work? Or why wouldn't this be the right way? Well, here's the reality. If we can be convicted that we can no longer see people from a worldly point of view because of the love of Jesus, now I got to think about what I've got to do. So I'm going to have to be convinced by God.
Yeah.
As to how I'm supposed to approach this. That's the plan.
I don't know about you. This isn't on our script at all, but I do feel like the time is now for that kind of a conversation. And the reason I feel like that is because I feel like we've been convinced a lot of different ways to stay divided for long enough. In my own world, I just see so many more people waking up to some of these lies. I feel like the lie has gone on long enough to where, for whatever reason, we're seeing it clearly. Some are seeing it more through spiritual lies than through these temporary lenses that we're wearing. And we're looking around at each other and noticing that my neighbor is not my enemy. The other political side is not my enemy. Another race is not my enemy. Our enemy is one enemy, and it's the devil. And that's what he's doing, is he's deceiving and he's lying and he's distorting. And I feel like for whatever reason, he's played his card a little too far, and people are starting to wake up and realize that. I don't think they know what the solution is yet, and I don't think they can articulate it the way you just did. But I do feel like the timing may be right, that more people will be receptive to the message. I don't know if you're feeling that too. Yeah,
I hope so. And, as you and I talked a few months back, this has been on my agenda for 5 years, almost 6 years. And I've talked myself out of stepping up because, okay, well, who cares what you're saying? Or, well, what about all the good that's being done by things like the civil rights movement? And what about all the good that's being done? And I don't want to diminish the good that has been done.
Yeah.
But I also want to recognize and acknowledge that isn't changing anything.
True.
Because it's not changing hearts. It's only changing systems. If you truly want to change
wow, that's a good quote. That's really true, though.
If you truly want to change systems, fully change. If you want to we're changing systems instead of transforming systems.
Mm-hmm.
God didn't come to bring change. He came to bring transformation. I mean, to go literally from one form to another. So if the systems that we're trying to change are socio-political,
you're just transferring power back and forth from one side to another. That's not where
God's working. God's not working in socio-political areas. He's working in spiritual areas, which will leak out into socio-political ones. But if all of our efforts are focused on the socio-political, or the economic, or the power-based, or the relational, then sure, we'll have some great stuff, but the hearts won't change.
Yeah.
And for some people, that's not enough, because the argument will be, well, you're just being so heavenly minded, earthly good. Okay. And I accept that that's how that feels. But I don't accept it as the full truth, because here's what Jesus said through Paul. He says, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. Mm-hmm. We are wrestling against principalities, powers, and spiritual wickedness in high places. So if we are trying to use human means to solve a spiritual problem, it will fall, and we will have deluded ourselves to believe that we could accomplish that.
Yeah.
When it's already been accomplished.
Yeah.
Jesus says, you go proclaim that. You go tell people, I have freed them. It's like Juneteenth.
Yeah.
It's the reality of Juneteenth. On January 1st, 1863, slavery was over.
On paper.
On paper.
Yeah.
But for 1,000 days, for 2.5 years, there were slaves in Galveston, Texas, and other parts of the South who didn't know, yet their reality was they were free.
Yeah.
Their conditions were they were not. So when General Granger came in and said, we need to read something to you, you've been freed. Our reality is we've been freed for 2,000 years. It plays out in human power struggles and power dynamics and political lefts and rights and country stuff. But Jesus is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And he says, no longer are you to operate like that. He told the disciples. The Gentiles and the other rulers of this world, they like to lord power over people.
Not so of you.
This whole race thing and the whole political thing is about power. And we want power in a world, but we are citizens of a different kingdom.
Yeah.
That sounds like it won't make a big difference. How could the church ever say that? Because a whole bunch of people without education turned the world upside down with a liberating message. And I just believe that, Mark, that is, the time is now. And I pray about this for me, because I'm not the only one. There are so many others who are saying similar things. I do believe that God has given me a unique voice in it. And
well, I believe that too.
I don't have to be the voice. I'm one of many. But I do believe my voice in the sphere of influence that God has granted me, that I need to stand at cost. I think it'll come at a cost, because I don't think our society wants to hear that. I don't think people who are fighting for power want to hear that.
They didn't want to hear it when Jesus was alive either, though, because what you just described of wanting earthly power and authority and whatever that's disguised under seeking justice or equality or whatever, it's underneath an umbrella of something that sounds good.
Yes.
But it's the same as the Pharisees wanted their power on earth to remain. They didn't want to submit to spiritual authorities in the bigger picture, like you're just describing.
Yep.
And they killed him for it. So it's, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think hopefully you won't endure that.
I look into that.
But it's a similar thing, you know. Right. It's earth, like you just said, like we can't solve spiritual problems with earthly solutions. It's just not going to work.
And you can't. What happens how do I convince someone that the definition of justice is not human devised?
Yeah.
The definition of justice is God's justice. How does God see justice?
Yeah.
Not how do we as humans want justice? How does God define justice? And when you're convicted of that, right? When you're convicted that justice and mercy and truth, there is right and wrong. There is the application of it, though, that reads heart, not always just action.
Yeah.
We have to lay down our stuff. But what was throughout the scriptures? What is the number one issue? It's idolatry. It's worshiping other gods and yielding ourselves to the gods of other thinking. That's a hard thing to say, but when we are accepting a worldly premise or a worldly approach, and we're using it and trying to attach Jesus to it,
Yeah.
it's like setting up an altar and putting a Baal god next to it.
Yeah.
That's my view.
It's interesting.
And I believe that's kind of what's happened.
And we did all these things in your name, but I never knew you. It's a
Yeah,
you know,
right. That's exactly right.
Well, man, I give you a ton of credit, because it's not easy. It's not easy to step into these kind of spaces and conversations, but I give you a lot of credit for doing it.
Thanks for encouraging me in it, actually.
Well, no, and I'll continue.
You've been a big encouragement in that.
Well, I'll continue to pray for you, because I think that you're speaking words that the Holy Spirit's going to clearly come out of your mouth, and I think He will convict hearts. Now, the question will be whether or not people respond to the pull that the Spirit has on their life to go play their part in it. But man, like I said, the way that you describe it, and the fact that it's already been done, it's just such an interesting concept. It's so simple, like you said, but so profound. It's already done for you. It's over. You don't have to keep living in this. Well, thank you for sharing all that.
Oh, pleasure.
All right, I'm shifting the gears again.
Okay.
I've had a chance to meet your wife.
Yes.
So I know that you guys have been. How long has it been now? How many years?
It'll be 39 years next month.
So you're coming up on 40. Mm-hmm. Man, that's pretty crazy. So what's been the secret to long and successful marriage with her?
You probably ought to ask her, because she's the one that's had to show the most grace. It's funny, you know, I told you about the guy who married us, John Alfred, he married us.
Yep.
John said something to us earlier on, and I felt like two things. He said two things. One thing he said was, listen, Jeff and Karen, you are going to have sparks in your marriage. just make sure they're welding sparks.
That's good.
Okay, it was.
Yeah.
So fire's good in the fireplace.
Yeah.
It ain't good in the living room floor.
Yeah.
Right? So the sparks that you have, use them to build something. And the second thing, he prayed this over us when we were at our wedding. He prayed over us, and he asked God to let the product of the two of us be greater than the sum of the parts. I first learned about synergy that day. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know that was a name.
Yeah.
And that became kind of a life word for me over time. But he asked God to help the multiplication of us, not the addition of us, the product of the two of us be greater than the sum of the parts. And what that was going to mean, because we are so different, as you know. My wife and I are so different. And it meant that I had to become more like her, and she had to become more like me.
Yeah.
And so if I'm, it's that whole thing, like what I was talking about with the change. If I'm always trying to drag her toward me, right, then we got a tug of war. But if we're both trying to come closer to Jesus, and I'm trying to get closer to her and think like she thinks and see her how she sees, it'll make a difference. And to be honest, we've had some stuff in our lives. We've had some major blows in our lives, some soul shakers. And I will say, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it wasn't just the knowledge of those two things that Halford told us, but it was the fact that we trust God.
Yeah.
We know that Jesus loves us, and that if it touches our lives, we may not like it. We may have to go through hard times, but he's there. And that has been the truth for 39 years.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's all I got for you, boss.
That's pretty cool, though, man.
And have a very patient wife. Very, very patient wife.
All right. So here's another, not a curveball, but after all these years, you preached a lot of messages. You're getting ready to lead a large influential men's group tomorrow morning we're sitting, as we sit here today, it's Holy Thursday. So tomorrow will be Good Friday as you're taking us through this, heading into Easter. What's your favorite thing to preach on? Either topic or passage.
Yeah. I've got a few life verses, right? That the ones that just kind of, they've shaped who I am. 2 Corinthians 5 is one of the ones that shaped who I am, right? And that's been a long time. Luke 4, they call it Jesus' mission statement, where he reads Isaiah 61. And we kind of take it as his mission statement. The Spirit of the Lord, the sovereign Lord is on me. He's anointed me to preach good news to the poor. And he goes through the prisoner and the captive and give sight to the blind and bind up the brokenhearted. The part that's often missed, where he stopped reading, right? Or in Luke it says, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor.
Yeah.
Most people don't recognize that as the year of Jubilee.
Yeah.
And the year of Jubilee was the year everything was set right. He came to declare that everything has been set right, that all debts are canceled, that people who've lost things have them restored. That became a part that's a part of my life verse.
And he wasn't talking about like our mortgages and our car payments. He was talking about our sin.
Yeah.
Our eternal death.
Our eternal death. And so even in Leviticus, where it's from, it was talking about the year of Jubilee, but he's talking about the spiritual truth that I am coming to take all debt, all sin, all pain, all everything, and I'm going to take it on me, and then I'm going to offer you the key, which is a relationship with me, and your life will be free. You are no longer what you were. And then 2 Corinthians says, you will be a new creation. The old is gone.
Born again.
That does not happen from a human being. And the reason those are two of my favorite passages is because they center on the center. None of it. All we get to do is embrace it. We don't do anything to receive it. We don't do anything to earn it. We don't do anything to make it happen. We receive it as the truth. And then he says, now I'm giving you a message. I love you, and I love you this much. And now I'm going to send you. So if you ever get an email from me, at the bottom, it says, live loved and live sent. Because that's, he sent us. He has sent us to proclaim what he has done for all of mankind in every situation.
Yeah.
Those are kind of my life verses. The last few years, I've been stuck in Joshua and Judges, right? I've been stuck there for the last few years. But again, that's just the courage, and this gets back to where we started. How I see myself as a leader, I know that God has blessed me to be a leader, but I don't always have the courage that I know he has called me to have. And so I shrink sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I've just been reminded of, the fact that was Joshua's world, because Moses had to tell him, and then God himself had to tell him 4 times in two verses or 3 verses. Listen, I'm telling you, be strong and very courageous, because I'm with you, right? So those are if you ask me, those are the ones that the Lord speaks over my life, and allows me to speak over the lives of others, I think.
Well, I can tell you from a character and competence perspective, you've got that oozing out of you, which is why people look to you as a leader. Your influence is felt far and wide, not just around our city, but probably all around the country and even beyond. So I know that you've been massively influential in my life. So there's zero reason for you to not have any courage at this point, brother. Like just take the steps. But I can't thank you enough for being here. I mean, people have gotten a little bit of a taste of the wisdom and the stuff that just kind of comes out of your pores through the results of this interview. Every breakfast, every lunch I've ever had with you is like this.
This is what we're like, except they don't realize that I pull out of you.
Yeah, you do. But
you are the same guy, right? I mean, you drop and it overflows out of you, right? The God story in you. And I'm not just trying to just shift the focus, but it's the truth. You've been doing these, and I've watched them. And Mark, the humility with which you do this is a testimony to the fact that what you put first and what you focused on.
Yeah, that's good.
And that I want you to know that I'm not just gassing you up. You are a leader among men, and I'm glad not just to be in relationship with you, but to learn from you.
Yeah,
I really am.
Well, what I've enjoyed is learning just how different God's made each one of us, the gifts that he's had. And then for those of us that really let it go run and put it out into the community, where you can just kind of see the fruit of just fully embracing who God's called you to be. It's so much fun. So when I get guys on the other end of the chair that are doing that, my hope is through this podcast, the whole reason we're doing it is to help inspire others who are listening to understand, okay, how has God uniquely gifted me? Where does he have me right now? What's he calling me to go do? And give them the courage to go respond to God's call by seeing people who are actually in response to it already. So I'm hoping that's you've given us a good glimpse of that here today.
I appreciate it, man. And look, it's what we're called to do.
Yep.
We are called to help people. However, there are people who will hear me and it'll resonate. And there are other people who'll be like, okay, that's cool. And it won't resonate. Yeah. Because, again, back to the voices. There's some voices that can be able to speak into a world.
Yeah.
And I know you've just got so many different groups of folks. But being on this journey together, it is such a cool journey to watch Jesus do what only he can do.
Yeah.
He is the center of our lives.
That's right.
And joining him in his mission is the point of our existence.
It's the meaning of life.
And so being able to know who he is and celebrate that is a powerful thing. So thank you. Thank you for doing it. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely, man. Well, if you want more access to prior shows, resources, books, newsletter, you can get it at markreeves.com. But we're over and out. Thanks for being here.
All right, man.
Thank you for watching the First in Focus show. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and then share with a friend.